In Step 3, we help you understand why schools and universities have been set up in the way they have and the curriculum they teach, and why it is so disconnected with the real world of money and business and industry, and especially the modern global competitive world.
That is about 100 years later, and there were certain things, certain problems that hadn't been solved by then. Euclid's stuff was great for numbers and geometry, but it wasn't so good for things like weights and volumes. And there were a few other issues that weren't quite right. And also there were, not Archimedes so much, but there were certain issues to do with astronomy. If you think about these countries like Egypt, I used to live in Egypt, at night, and this is before the age of pollution, of course, at night the stars are absolutely fabulous. You know, after sunset, which typically in that part of the world, it's often 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening, the sun goes down. Where does the sun go? It disappears. The sun disappears off the face of the earth. Is the sun a god that's shining and bringing us warmth? So people didn't know what the sun was. So the sun goes down and there's the stars, but the stars seem to be moving. So the kings of that time, or the leaders of that time, the way they kind of built up their credibility was to have all these clever people come on in and do calculations. So Archimedes came up with some great theories for volume and stuff like that. The story, the quick version of the story is the king called Archimedes in and he said, "Hey Archimedes, somebody just gave me a gift of a new gold crown." And Archimedes said, yeah, it's cool, I like it. And the pharaoh said, "Yeah, but I think it's a gold crown, that's what they're telling me, but I'm not sure they haven't added some silver to it. And I'm suspicious it's not really 100% gold. And I'm the king, man. I only wear 100% gold. So what I want you to do is take the crown, go home, have a bath, think about it, see whether you can work out, is it pure gold or has some guy put some silver into it?" So Archimedes went off with this crown, tried to work it out. It was a big problem. He was sitting in his bath. And the story, I think it's a myth, but anyway, is he worked it out while he was in his bath, got the answer to the problem, jumped out of his bath, ran down the street shouting "Eureka," which is, I have found the answer to this problem. But the point is, there was this knowledge kicking around from all these different sources, from astronomy, through Archimedes, through all these other people, all coming in. And they started writing these books. And basically, the books themselves were meant to be manuals for people to do useful stuff. But they just finished up as a load of books, lots of books. And they were in a library. Now, they were academic books. But in effect, they were rules and methods for everything, to do any calculation you needed to. So, these exist, and in a way, this is a separate story. At least it should be a separate story, because all of that was happening over 2,000 years ago. And there were all these books for useful ways of doing stuff. So if you come back to the Western world now, around 1800, this is 1800 AD, which is kind of a big jump. But up until then, society was basically a few people in charge, and nearly everybody was involved in agriculture, or they were involved in simple crafts, getting a lump of metal and bashing it into a particular shape, or making clothes. But they were the same way as making clothes as their fathers and their fathers' fathers and their mothers and mothers. Everything was handed down by tradition. So you were taught a craft, and there were guilds that taught these crafts. But around 1800-ish, there was a thing called the Industrial Revolution. And suddenly, the society and the leaders of the society perceived there was a need for more people to be educated. So the elite universities like Oxford and Cambridge and the elite schools that were teaching Latin and certain amounts from these books were suddenly asked to, new schools were formed, and they were all asked to start teaching this stuff, the academic stuff. So what happened was this so-called academic education based on things like number theory, Euclidean geometry, Archimedes stuff, what the astronomers were doing, and there were various other people who were chemists, like what's stuff made of, what is elemental matter, chemists. So the society perceived it needed people to be taught this stuff. Now, at the time this started to happen, there vaguely was a purpose, because not everybody was taught. Most young people left school at about 13 years old, or 14 or 15. My father left school. My father was very, very clever. He finished up speaking 11 languages, and he was off the chart clever. I didn't inherit that much of that, but he was really clever. But he had to leave school at 15 and get a job, just an ordinary manual job. So people left school at 15. They didn't do all this through 17 through 18. And especially what they didn't do was the next, God knows how many years of their lives, say 18 to what, 22 or 26 and 25, 26 at university. The reason I'm going on about this is I'm talking to you about learning and how you've learned and what you've learned. So the society has, for the last, since you were 12, they've stopped teaching you any of this stuff and this stuff, and not very much of this stuff, a little bit, say a quarter, and it's all this. It's all academic stuff. It's all this old stuff plus new stuff. New scientific discoveries are happening all the time, and they're doing degree. You can get a degree. You can sit 3 years in a university, or 4 years, or 5 years, or 6 years studying all this academic stuff. But here's the point. Most of it has no purpose. And that's the problem. Because previously, it was in the hands of a few people who needed to know how to use it, and they did use it, and they had a purpose. But you, if you go through all of this, have been taught a huge amount for many, many years of this kind of stuff. And I don't know what colour to do this in, to be honest. It is purposeless. For most of you, you don't really need to know Euclidean geometry, which, by the way, is still taught. You don't really need to know this kind of number theory. And you don't need to know how to weigh a gold crown and make sure it's got pure gold in it. And most of you don't actually need to know much about astronomy and all that sort of stuff. So all these years when you could have been learning something useful, you're not. You've been learning stuff that's pretty well useless in terms of your formal education. Now, as you've been growing up through all that time, of course you've been learning stuff. You've been meeting people. You've been social with people. You perhaps, if you're lucky, have had close relationships with partners and that kind of thing. And you've had fun. But you've not had any proper education in these three areas. And what I'm trying to do with this course that I've put together is I'm going to teach you all this stuff. Now, here's my challenge. This stuff is fact-based and rule-based. And what I need to teach you, and you need to learn, is this stuff isn't fact-based. It's different. It's based on other things, and you learn it in different ways. Now, I'm on top of that because I've taught well over 1,000 people, but I tend to get them in my classroom once they finish their degrees and they get hired into high-powered jobs. And they don't know what to do. They don't have these skills. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, I'm just going to check my notes and make sure I've covered this adequately. Yeah, it's all about chemistry and so on. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. After this, I'm going to stop this one, and I'm going to come into another thing, which is just as the Industrial Revolution was a major change, the age of computing is another change, because it's changed the balance of the type of work that people do. And to some extent, in the future, as artificial intelligence and robots and machines in factories come in, it's going to change the practicality and the purpose of education. So I'm going to talk to you about computers, the impact of computers, learning about computers, and how that knowledge relates to these topics. So I'm going to finish this session now. I hope I've got it all on tape, and thank you for your time.
Your mind is waiting for you to begin taking control. So let the IPL help you across that difficult bridge from student to adult.
Only you can change your world. You need to develop new and powerful behaviours. And now you can learn how, with training that normally costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can learn to learn, earn, and grow. Good luck. Don't be surprised by the setting, the slow pace, and the style of this training course. Experience has shown that one-on-one personal dialogue coaching is the fastest way to help students to understand and optimize their own behaviors. This, now you have discovered it, is your opportunity. Carpe diem and semper aude. Seize the day. Dare to be wise.
Why not write down now 3 industries and 3 types of job that you think you might enjoy being involved in those industries, just as a beginning. Your subconscious will make a note of what you've written down and will start working on helping you to find more about your purpose in life. Remember, you are now taking control.